Here we go. I believe I may be live right now. What's going on, you guys? And welcome to The Script. I'm your host, Isaac Paul. And, I always begin with just kind of giving people a quick rundown, a very brief introduction. For those of you all that do not know, my name is Isaac Paul, and I am the creator and the host of The Tequila Tales, which is a highly engaging and fully interactive discussion on love and relationships. What it is not is a panel discussion. And I always make it a point to make that distinction because with the Tequila Tales, our motto is with love, we all have a story to tell. And so my goal from show to show is always to gather a room of sometimes like-minded individuals, other times not so much. But I call us intellectuals with ratchet tendencies. And so our goal in many cases is to get those stories out of real life people, right? And, each show there's a different topic. And inside of those topics, there's a lot of diversity in the commentary. And so that is always really what the live show is about. And so what this discussion is, or what this iteration is the script, because even though we all have a story to tell, oftentimes that story comes without a script. And so that is what this is. This is the digital manifestation of the Tequila Tales. So this is actually going to be a very special show for me because I have someone that I hold near and dear to my heart. This is an individual that I met through another close friend, and this was several years back. And she's just one of those people where, you meet him in the early stages and you're like, okay, she's pretty cool. You don't really get a good opportunity to build with them. But just as life continues to grow, this was someone where every time that we had a conversation, no matter how brief or how long, it ended up being meaningful and impactful, right? And so as we've grown throughout the years, and even now, we don't really get an opportunity to speak very often, but she has a tendency sometimes to just reach out. And, for those of you all that don't know, I'm into astrology. So she's a Pisces. She really doesn't know much about astrology. I think I got her studying it a little bit, but she's a Pisces. And Pisceans are very intuitive individuals. And so she's someone that has a tendency to sometimes just reach out and will, out of the blue, say something that's supremely impactful and incredibly timely, right? And so she reached out to me earlier today and she shared something with me about a clip that, I had recently posted on social media. And she shared that her and a good friend of hers had almost a good half an hour to an hour conversation about this particular clip. And she said, you know what, man, when you get an opportunity, I would really like an opportunity for us to just have an exchange about this, because not only did they have an impactful conversation about it, but she wanted some of my feedback. And so, I was like, okay, we're going to definitely have this conversation. I knew that I had the script this evening. Ironically enough, I didn't have much of a script. So I was like, you know what? Hey man, what are you doing in about 2-3 hours? And she was like, man, hopefully having a conversation with you. And I was like, Yeah, but maybe with a twist, right? So everybody isn't always ready to just hop on the live, especially not a live that's being broadcasted through multiple streams. And so, she jumped on board and was like, yo, not only is she down, she had already intuited that I was going to go there, right? And so, with that being said, without further ado, I'm going to introduce a good friend of mine, Taria Buchanan. So give me an opportunity. Now, for those of you that don't know, I'm still kind of new to, operating a lot of this software. So if it goes off the rails at a point, just deal with me, okay? I'm also monitoring the comments from multiple channels. So even if you're the only one that's watching on a particular channel and you want to engage in the discussion, go ahead and type it in. I can actually see it through this platform. But with that being said, Taria, how are you doing, man? Thank you for showing up. It's definitely a pleasure. What's going on?
Isaac, I'm doing fantastic. One, I'm just thrilled that we're able to have this conversation on the same day where I'm like, bruh, are you available for some intellectual play? Because I want to play on this. Also, I like to show up authentic in my expression. So if there's a time where I get nervous or something, I'm just going to say that and I'm just going to roll and flow with it. So that's where I'm coming from. I'm not prepared. I'm not scripted. I'm just here. What you see is what you get.
Same deal here, right? And so that's actually what's kind of fun about it. I always say, like, from show to show, I've one of the things that I've been sharing with individuals is just like, just give me some time to figure this thing out, right? Like, when it was first suggested, or I was propositioned with the opportunity to kind of have this partnership with blackdoctor.org, it was impactful to me and meaningful for a couple of different reasons. One, because I had been feeling for a while that, it was time to amplify my voice, right? And for not any kind of reasons associated with vanity, but just because and I know you could probably attest to this, like that there are some times in this life where especially on social media, where you are just reading things and it just feels like, where the hell are people's minds at nowadays, right? And so, having this opportunity to be able to partner with blackdoctor.org, not only because of the reputation that they've built over the years, but then also just what they represent, which ultimately is Black health, and being in this space with the Tequila Tales, we're all talking about love and relationships, and our primary audience is Black and brown people. So, can you really address Black health without really talking about our relationship health, right? And our emotional health. And so I felt like this was such an awesome collaboration, and when you hit me up earlier about that particular clip, I was like, yo, like, I would actually like to have this conversation. And just knowing the kind of conversations that we typically have, I was like, this would be a good place to have it. And, like you said, this is unscripted. So even though it's called The Script, the cool part about it is that we show up without the script, right? And then from that point forward, we'll just kind of dig into it. So with that being said, I feel like we should just dive right into okay, no. So you talked about a specific clip, but there was a clip that was before that clip that led into it. And so how I figure we can structure this conversation during this period while I have you is we'll play the clip and we'll play the succession of the clips, and then we can just engage, as it relates to the dialogue that's not only being shared inside the live show, but then also, the conversation that you had with your friend earlier. Okay.
Absolutely. I like that approach. At some point, I would love to just name, maybe at the end of our conversation, maybe, I don't know when you let me know, but I would like to name the value I see in these conversations you're having, to be able to name for the audience the payoff of listening to these conversations and imbibing them and being able to integrate them. So that's it.
Okay, I like that. So with that being said, we'll just dive right in. I'm gonna start with the first clip, which, and full disclaimer, and I've shared this before, right? Like, we are intellectuals with ratchet tendencies. So on occasion, you may hear a little bit of language. It's not over the top, it's not vulgar, but we are adults, right? And it is called the Tequila Tales. And so, the name of this clip is called Post-Nut Clarity. And we'll go into the description of what post-nut clarity is, but that's where it began. Okay, so we'll start with that. And I know that when we climax, I feel like something different happens to us that happens to women, right? When they genuinely climax, it becomes more of a sense of attachment, like, oh shit, finally. And then that, I don't know if it's the serotonin or what, becomes a sense of connection. When a man climaxes, while we will enjoy it, it becomes clarity. So one of the things that I see on social media, they call it post-nut clarity, right? Where you will think you are just, I am in love with this woman, right? Like you are going in. The moment you climax, you will be like, what the hell am I doing? Now I knew better than this, you know what I'm saying? And so to that point, right? Like if you do climax and then all of a sudden it's like, nah, I want to remain here. That means that if the goal was connection, then you have successfully accomplished your objective, which is you've shown enough about yourself and the value that you add beyond the intimacy to whereas the man is genuinely interested in extending that relationship. And so I have absolutely no disagreement with that. Okay, so we'll just start there, right? And what was fascinating to me about this particular clip is I did not think at the time that it was controversial, okay? Sometimes you say something, sometimes you got a little piece of information in the back of your head and you say to yourself like, okay, this makes sense to me, and I'm 40, I'm gonna be 45 this year. So I'm sitting here and I'm like, this makes sense. I've always said, and I remember in talking to women, decades past, I used to always say that a lot of times in relationships, especially during the courtship phase, that the man's finishing point is oftentimes a woman's starting line, right? So it's like when the man goes touchdown, that's actually when the game begins for women, typically, right? Like in a sense of everything that we were doing during the courtship process, in many cases, was leading up to sex. Now, I know as we mature and our minds develop, we evolve and we don't have those same kind of urges that we used to. But if my purpose for like being interested in you was physical in nature, right? I wasn't thinking about, oh, I'm really looking for someone to add value and come into my world and, do all of these fantastical things. I was driven by a sexual urge, you know what I mean? And so everything that I was doing up to that point was, as Martin said, GTD, was to get the draws, right? I was attempting to get the draws. And whether or not I got them fast or I got them long was up to the woman to determine, like how quickly I was able to get to that space. But in most cases, that was what our initial impetus was. We were driven by a physical urge. And so I used to always tell women, like, okay, in most cases, women almost kind of filling you out. But then the moment that they have sex, that's because they've reached generally a place of trust where they're like, okay, let's do this. And so whereas a man might feel like victory once they have sex, for a woman, that's actually when her game begins, which is, okay, now we're having sex. Now, what are we? Like, is this a relationship? Where are we going? Right? Whereas a man might be like, whoo, okay, job well done. And not saying that we don't want anything else after that, but just saying that I generally would recognize that women, that's really when they became more emotionally attached, was after the physical, the physical expression of said desire. So like, I mean, what are your thoughts towards that sentiment? Like, do you see any legitimacy in it? Like, was I off? Did you like, I'll be shooting from the hip, but I'm just curious to know, like, how did you feel about that particular clip?
About that clip. So, one, I do hear the legitimacy in what you're saying. That clip stood out to me because I'm in a phase of life where I am genuinely interested in understanding what is happening from the male perspective, right? And as a woman, I can tell you that there are things that happen on our side of the fence that they're like almost automatic. They're inherent in how we are, how we behave. And it's not because we choose it. It's just how it goes, right? And so when I saw your clip today, it resonated as a continuation of a conversation I was having with my friend Alex on Sunday. And that on Sunday, I was angry. I'm not an angry person generally. I'm generally a very bubbly person, bright. I have a lot of joy and happiness in my life. However, as a woman, there are times when the menstrual cycle starts where a rage just pops up and I'm just sitting in it. And so I hit my boy up because we're in this practice of deepening the authenticity in our relationship and how we show up. And that deep anger was real for me. And so I wanted to share that with him and show that to him and let him know that this thing in me, it doesn't come up every cycle, but sometimes it comes up and she mad. She want to burn the whole damn world down. Like I was so mad. I had to leave church. Early. I went to curse preach out. I went to I went to West Elm. I was mad at everybody in there. I wanted to break something. I wanted to steal something just out of rebellion. And I'm watching this identity rise from the surface, and I'm regulating it and I'm working with it and I'm making sure that it doesn't spill out to my partner or to anyone else, but it's real and it's here and it's just a part, right? And so when I saw your clip, what stood out to me was how you were pretty much describing this post-nut phenomenon where you get this clarity, where beforehand you have these thoughts of like, man, this is it. Man, I think this sometimes I think this girl might be the one, and then you go and you get it, and then you know you're just like, actually, I'm clear, and it's not. And you expressed it as a phenomenon that just happens. And as a woman who goes through my own phenomenon that just happens, I could hear that, and so I sent it to my homie Alex, and I was like, bruh, I want to get your insight on this. I also shared it with my partner Jamar to get his insight on it as well, because I'm curious and I want to know, because I want to be able to understand and to build understanding and compassion for you all as humans and to just let you exist, because I'm just trying to exist too. And hearing you speak about that was super, super insightful, because my partner has said, by the way, I am married. I've been with my partner for 17 years now. And homie has told me before, he's been like joking but serious. He's like, hey, if you want something from me, ask before I know. I will give you anything. I will give you the world beforehand. So he has said that to me, and when you said it just triggered a bunch of like, oh, I remember he said this and Alex said that. This is making sense for me. And so when I heard it, I personally didn't take any offense to it. It was more just like, okay, this is a thing, and I want to understand more. And the reason I want to understand more, Isaac, is because we're at this impasse with Black men and women where our relationships or our ability to entangle our energy is really suffering. When I go online, I go to comments, I see Black men and women fighting all the time, just fighting. And one of the things that's going to help us glow up as individuals and as a community is to be able to flow in healthy relationships. And that requires us being able to understand each other and realize that the experiences that I'm having are different for you as a dude. They're just different. And I need to be able to make space for that and to hold that and to have compassion for that, and vice versa. We need to be able to show up as whole people, whole humans, right? But yeah, your clip gave me fodder for very interesting conversations today.
And so, and I appreciate you sharing that, as well as sharing that with your partner, like what it was that he said, because so to just even show you the progression of the discussion. So before that particular comment, and one of the things that I love about the live shows is that they never, even though I have a script, or I have notes, I should say, pages worth that I've generally written out, the one thing that I always attempt to do is to allow the conversation to go where it wants to go. Right now, there are times where, I've got to reel it back in, or times where it's, a little too staid and it's like, all right, I got to kind of shift, course. But there are times where someone will say something and it'll trigger, a range of thoughts. And then from that point forward, it's like, all right, let's just pause here for a second and then explore. So, it was a gentleman that had shared something where he was saying something. I think the conversation initially started with individual, because, like a large portion of people that will come to the live shows are people that are either single or actively dating. We'll have people in relationships and people that are married also. And a lot of times the value that we'll add is kind of like the insight or the live experience from people that, you know, are connected with someone. But to the individuals that are there, that are, you know, either actively searching, there to find someone, or maybe even potentially there on a date, you know, we're having these discussions, and it began with the space of like, what's a good place to find someone? And so a guy had grabbed the mic, and, you know, he was kind of monologuing and everything, but he was talking about like kind of cautioning people about looking in the wrong places, or going to certain places, like say a club or, you know, a lounge, and really what you're looking for is something of substance. And he wasn't saying that you can't find someone of substance there, but just be mindful of the fact that oftentimes when men are at that space, they have a different MO, right? They're searching for something different. And so he had made a comment that was something to the degree of like a male's nature to just sometimes use someone as a jump off, you know? And so when he made that comment is when I started sharing about the whole post-nut clarity. And like I said, online, there's this whole joke where, what would you do if you won this $100 million lottery? And so like the guy's, his response was, well, the first thing I got to do is jerk off so that, you know, I can get some post-nut clarity, because I don't want to be dealing with that nonsense, right? And so it was cracking me up when I saw it, because then in the comments, you got all the dudes talking about all the ridiculous things that they would do if they did not get that initial impulse out. Now, okay, are we that barbaric? No, we aren't, right? But I think in many cases, men, or at least I thought, right, have experienced this on some level where you recognize that stark contrast that occurs between the hormonal influence and how real it can feel at times, right, versus the moment that it's flushed, you know. And it doesn't mean that we're going to go from left all the way to right, but it does mean that something that was driving that urge to copulate immediately is depleted. And then from that point, you're thinking with what we would call a clear mind, right? So, I guess I shared it, but I know how it can sound sometimes. And so a woman followed up with this particular question.
Response about the post-nut clarity. Yeah. What about pre-clarity? Like before you actually sleep with the person, because don't you think you leading that person on if you go and sleep with them and then afterwards you like, oh, what the hell am I doing? Why didn't you think about that before you got into it?
Oh, you want to know?
I mean, I'm just asking. I mean, you could answer, or all of the men could answer, because for me, I'm not giving it up unless I know. So why don't y'all feel like that? Like, are you just community?
I got a comment.
Okay. So, you know, the community, right? And for those of y'all that don't know what she meant by community, there's a term that's called community dick, right? Which is basically the guy that is just slinging it around. It's here for the community. And he's probably pretty good at it because he's had a lot of experience. You know, maybe you can utilize him if you need in the jump off, but have low expectations. So that's what she was asking. And so I was like, oh, okay. You know, are you asking me? Do you want me to clarify? Or do you want this to come from the crowd? And so, you know, just because we're already on this space, I'll go ahead and play the clip. And then this was actually the clip that I think you had seen that sparked off the conversation between you and your friend. So it was this particular one right here, which you'll see the name of it as it kicks in.
That's just a lack of dick discipline. No.
Okay. She wanted to know, like, I talked about post-nut clarity. And she wanted to know, like, well, what about pre-nut clarity? Like, if you know that that's not how you really felt, then why didn't you, like, basically, why weren't you more transparent? And why did you not share your truth prior to getting entangled? And the answer to that is, a lot of times I think women think that we're full of shit, and they think that we knew that we wasn't feeling you. No, when our testosterone was kicking in, we genuinely believed that, like, we were ready to do anything for you. Like, do y'all know how many guys have driven in the snow, tipsy, you know, like sliding off the road, risking their lives to come to your house at 2 a.m. in the morning? We were throwing it all out on the line because our physiology believed that we really wanted to go there, and something magical happens at the moment of climax where it's like all of that flushes out of you, right? And I know that sounds disheartening to women because it's like, oh shit, no, but I'm saying that to concur with what the brother said. If it all flushes out and we still want to cuddle, what you're getting at that point is us minus the testosterone. It's us minus the hormonal influence that was driving us to copulate. And now you're really dealing with our emotional space. And so this is just a bit of game. This ain't something for us to argue. I'm not sitting here like we can argue genetics all day and biology all we want to. I'm just sharing that in men, we genuinely feel like, damn, she might be the one. We don't know until we climax and we still want to be there. So what I'm sharing is if a guy
disagree.
What?
Like this whole crew is they
gonna say okay, all right. Oh, y'all think I'm lying?
They about to jump.
If y'all think I'm lying, all right, then shit. Then let's go there. All right, what the fellas have to say about what it is that I just said? What y'all got to say?
Gotcha. So to hit on that comment, I'm gonna hit on that comment and then the one over there. That's just a lack of dick discipline. No. And now to the comment over here about a woman being labeled a hoe and a man being applauded for, promiscuity. When it comes to a woman and why they're classified as a hoe is because a woman has all the power in the situation. And so if you're willingly giving your power out, what power do you really have? And so it makes sense to be inaccessible to people. It's okay to be selfish, but not selfish to the extent that you can't allow yourself to be loved and nurtured by someone else. And so in that viewpoint, when you're out dating or doing whatever you're going to do, it's okay to be a little selfish and a little bit guarded because you want to vet the person that you're going to allow inside your body or allow in your space. And that takes time. And as a person that's been with multiple women and been with women that's been with multiple men, I've noticed this. And it comes from my perspective. When I was out hoeing and doing whatever I had to do, I didn't have dick discipline. I found validation in being around a lot of women. And I could pull them pretty easily. But when you wake up the next morning, you have your post-nut clarity, and you're looking up and looking around you, and you have nothing to show for it, and you're just a vessel, and you're just a black hole, that eventually gets to you. If you're a man with no conscience, then be that. But a man that has awareness will see that, hey, I'm giving my life force to all these people, and I'm not getting anything in return. I guess.
Okay, so let me just start by saying right there, after I posted that, I had some of my female friends sliding in my DMs trying to figure out who dude was, right? This tall, handsome drink of water right here. They like, man, so what's his at? I'm like, listen, girl, first off, calm down, okay? And so, it tickles me, but he's actually a really cool dude. He's an artist. And actually pretty young, ironically enough, right? Like he's 27 years old. A lot, and like that would surprise people. Yeah, 27 years old. So I mean, he has a very mature mindset, but it was very interesting to watch some of the back and forth in the comments. So what I'm curious to know is like what were some of the angles that the conversation that you was having with your friend? Like what were some of the things that you guys were discussing?
We discussed his evolution to dick discipline because my friend Alex is a man who has dick discipline. So he pretty much affirmed your explanation of what you said, in terms of like when the testosterone's in the body, when it flushes out, you can think more clearly. And also he affirmed what the guy said later, right? And so for myself and for my friend Alex, we both viewed that as an evolution towards self-mastery is how it occurred. Because at this point in life, my friend is very purpose and mission driven, and he was out there chasing and doing all the things too. And now he's at this point where he is very clear about what his vision and mission for his life is. And he's clear about what the energy that it takes. And he's like, I can't be out here giving my energy away to people. I can't be out here chasing women for the sake of women. I have bigger values now. And if I'm going to give my life force energy away or share it with someone, it has to be in the greater context of my purpose now. Right. And so that was his estimation of it. But he saw it from both sides, right? From both sides. And when I first saw the guy in the video talk about discipline, oddly enough, as a woman in my own way, that resonated with me, just for a different reason, right? And I'm going to continue to use the example of the angry identity that comes up sometimes when I'm at the beginning of my menstrual cycle. I call her Pam because Pam be mad. She want to burn the whole damn world down. Everybody. She a whole alter ego that first showed up when I was 12 years old. Okay, and I'm at this phase in my life now where that energy can come up for me, but it is not destructive. When it comes up for me, I let my partner know, hey, I'm angry right now, and I'm extra irritable, and I will go and I will regulate that. I'll regulate that for myself because I am in a level of evolution and discipline where that identity does not take me over. It does not take me over. It does not drive my life. And I shared this with Alex as well, and he resonated with that too. Like that the testosterone doesn't control or take over anymore. It's still there and it's still present, but it is not the driving force. It's like Alex and I are friends, and we are in our own life partner group, if you will, because we are both people who have gotten to a place of self-mastery, and we just got shit to do in this world. And I ain't got time to be losing myself because of certain energy comes up in my body, and I have a compulsion to let it drive me. Right. So that was a core topic. I thought that his response was very interesting because he approaches it from a mission-driven point in life, whereas my partner had agreed. Jamar agreed with everything you said. Like Jamar was like, he ain't agree with you, and he also
Would you say he was like facts?
we're in the car driving, he's just like facts, right? But what I appreciated about Jamar's perspective was different. What Alex is from a, hey, I'm focused on a goal right now, and like my energy is going over here. Jamar came from a place of something different, right? In our 17 years, we dealt with infidelity in our relationship, like maybe 9 years ago or something like that. And Jamar talked about that. He was like, man, there were times where that testosterone drove me into interactions with women. And after the post-nut clarity came, it was like, what am I doing? What did I subject myself to? Right. And so to be able to have him speak from that perspective, a real life perspective, and to hear him talk about how later on, after we went through our healing process, he had to focus his energy, and he had to make for how he was going to live his life, right? Like I appreciated both those perspectives because it really helps me. It helps me understand as a woman, like where guys are coming from. And a lot of time, I mean, don't get me wrong, there are some dudes out here who are just grimy, right? Who have negative intentions and are moving in that way. However, I don't want to just assume that all dudes are that way. And I think that there's value in understanding how the energy moves through them, how the energy moves through you, right? Because when that kind of is the way that you describe it, if it's anything how like how it is for us when energy moves for us, when that energy comes up, it's compulsive and it's strong. It can catch you in the grip, right? And what I've learned about compulsion, when an energy of compulsion is inside of me, I am incoherent. I can't think clearly. I can't make proper decisions because I am driven by a force that is not myself right now. And so to be able to resonate with dudes and be like, yeah, it's a different context for me, but and I understand, it allows me to have more understanding and more compassion for what things are, right? And I think that it's valuable for me to hear Jamar's perspective or Alex's perspective, and hopefully like you gave your perspective in the talk, your perspective as well, because I'm a human and I live in objective reality. In order for me to thrive, I have to sit with what's true. I have to sit is and be able to accept that and accept my partner and accept my friends for who you all are. And I want to be accepted as well, because there is no way for me to level up to the next evolution of myself if I don't have a self space just to let who I am right now just be. You feel me?
Yeah, yeah. Listen, you know what? It just dawned on me, and I think you made it. I don't know if you made it clear initially, but I just caught while you were sharing about the other side of you prior to your cycle beginning, because you drew the distinction in recognizing that for that particular period, you are another person. Yes, it is still you, but it's almost as if you do not have complete control over, at the very least, your drives. Now, whether or not you act on something, yes, that is where the discipline can come into. But you were cognizant on some level that for this little period, I can become a very different individual than I am for this other period, right? And for that period, it is the hardest thing on the planet for you to be able to control and to be able to maintain. And so I appreciate you being able to draw that correlation, right? So to add to that, right? Inside of Think and Grow Rich, the book by Napoleon Hill, he has an entire chapter that's devoted to the transmutation of sex energy, right? And so essentially what he talks about inside of the transmutation of sex energy is that testosterone is the male driving force to create, right? Like it's not just for making babies, but it's for building businesses. It's for doing anything that's going to take a lot of effort, right? And he said that during this period that you normally will find that in most men, the greater majority of men, they really don't start to get into their really sweet space of really being able to develop and build anything in their world into their 40s and their 50s. And his reason for that is because at that point, testosterone has declined enough to where you can actually control it a little bit, and then you can redirect that sex energy and use it towards something else. Because the same energy that's being used to sleep with a bunch of women is the exact same energy that's used to build an organization, right? Or to do something that's great. And so that drive exists in all men, but unfortunately, I think it comes down to two things. Everyone hasn't developed the discipline, but again, I believe in astrology. So while I don't use astrology as a means of giving people a pass for bad behavior, what I do understand is that it does make many of us, we have predispositions that other people don't have, right? So Jamar, your partner, I know because I know him, he's an Aries, right? So I know Arians are aggressive, they are impulsive, they are not they leap before they think sometimes. It is a part of what makes them who they are. So you can look at them and you can feel like, oh, well, they're underdeveloped, or, oh, well, that's a bad thing, right? It's easy for us to look at that trait or that characteristic as if it's a bad thing until you need someone to jump on your behalf, until you need someone to defend you, until something is going on in your life and you need someone to leap first before they start asking a bunch of questions. You know what I'm saying? If I'm hanging out with the homies and you see me getting jumped, bro, don't come over there to figure out why the hell these dudes is jumping me. I need you to have my back right now. We'll figure this shit out later. You feel what I'm saying? Like if you're going to be my close homie, if you're going to be someone that I honestly consider to be inside of my circle, you're that person for me. You're someone that hopefully you know enough about me that when you see me over here getting jumped, I need you to come like my man that jumped in the riverboat fight that happened last week.
Oh, yeah, Aquaman.
Jumping in I need you swimming to come to my defense before you go and investigate and become Sherlock Holmes. You feel what I'm saying? So it's like Aries is also that type of individual too, right? So it's like there are times where the impulsiveness, all right, I don't need all of that, let's make it happen type of energy is good, right? So it's not necessarily that it's a bad trait, it is part of what identifies them as an individual. And so for Jamar, when before he had gotten to that space where he's becoming more, disciplined. And then also, like I said, the testosterone kind of tapers off and you learn some things. That force is a little bit harder for him to control than, say, a Pisces, right? Or a Scorpio, or you know what I mean? Like, so in that space, it's not that I got to give you the pass for bad behavior, but astrology helps me to understand and acknowledge that we are all very different and that we have to accept that. We have to accept that there is not this one standard way of life that fits and makes sense for everyone. Because me as a Virgo, I need something very different than what another individual does. And so it's like, yes, it's about self-mastery, but it's also about aligning yourself with the universe and understanding that it doesn't make sense, or it doesn't matter if what makes sense to you makes sense for everyone else all the time, right? And so in some instances, we're pretending like all relationships are supposed to be handled the exact same way. And that's one of the things that we come into these discussions, like the tequila tales, that I find it's a message that constantly is reverberated, and it adds personal value because it helps me to continue to remember that we are all very different sometimes at our core, and that's okay. It's okay that we're all very different. We're not supposed to be the same person. So what floats your boat, it doesn't have to float mine. But when you go into the comment section, as we were talking about earlier, there's this belief that we're all supposed to be the same person. We're all supposed to view this situation the same way. And that fascinates me. That fascinates me that you think a stranger from another state that's a different age, that was raised by different people, like, bro, you are different than your brother. You and your brother can't even agree on whether or not LeBron or Jordan is the best, or Drake or Kendrick. Y'all don't agree with every. And this the same dude that was raised by the same parents, right? That came up experiencing the same thing, was in the same classes, had the same mom and dad. Like I said, all of this stuff, you all are very different, but yet I'm going to argue with a stranger because I believe that what makes sense to me inside of my relationship is supposed to make sense to them. And people don't realize that this is one of the foundational reasons that a lot of people are having a hard time finding someone, because you won't be honest with yourself, and you won't be honest with what are the motivating factors that drive you and that drive your behavior, and then attempting to find someone that is in alignment with that, right? And it feels like we're getting closer to that space, but I also think that there's still so much judgment and so much castigation for anyone that deviates, right? Or anyone that feels a little differently from this belief pattern. It's just that's the thing that never understand. In your heart of hearts that you are very different from everybody else, but you get mad at other people for not viewing things the exact same way that you do. It's the most bizarre phenomenon to me. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, like I said, when it comes to this post-nut clarity, it was not my goal to make it seem like all men are one way. But just because I want to show you this next clip, this was the next clip that followed that, right? And this is what I said. This was the
before we move on, Isaac. Can we discuss more before we move on to the next clip? Mm-hmm. Because the things that you just shared right now, I feel like this is getting into like the real meat of the conversation here, right? Mm-hmm. You talked about how a tool like astrology can help us to understand that which is unique about each person, right? I call tools like astrology, like human design, gene keys, a bunch of things, self-science. And I completely, I agree with the things that you're saying, in terms of how there is a social norm where those who have not yet unlocked their own self-science tend to project a social construct onto everyone around them, right? On how they should relationship, how they should show up, all that. And the things you said about Jamar are accurate. He is an Aries. He's a hot-blooded, like, kind of go person. And it has been so helpful and beneficial for me to understand the things about him that makes him unique. But that has been, that occurred in a space of my own self exploration, because you're absolutely right. Like we're yes, we're human, but we also have individual characteristics and traits about us. And those traits come across as gifts in some point. But the gift of an Aries is that they will jump into the water and swim to your defense if someone's jumping on you. The challenge that comes along with that same characteristic and trait is the impulsivity, right? And we're here to like master these traits and to learn from these traits and to get the lessons from these traits. But I do think that let me tell you what I know, because I'm talking to you from experience. I'm not talking to you from no intellectual, I read this in a book. I'm talking to you from like, this is what a bitch knows. You understand? It is imperative to allow the space for, within the context of relationships, not just romantic relationship, but relationship in general. I use the word relationship very broadly, okay?
Right.
To allow for the other human being to exist. To allow for the other human being to exist as themselves, because and I'm saying this coming from a lifestyle where I was living in that box. I was living in that social box of what I should be doing. Let me follow the social moralities. My relationship needs to look the way that everybody else's relationship look. It needs to look conventional. And it took that relationship breaking down and tearing up so that we two people can have the space to come in and like be whole, honest, authentic individuals, period. And for anyone who is projecting what a relationship should be onto someone else, that is also a person who is not allowing their own life to breathe. And the reality is you cannot experience true fulfillment in a relationship where you can't show up 100.
Right.
Where you can't show up 100. And the reality, and I say this as a woman, I say this to other women, a reality is that, you know, as men, you experience this testosterone dynamic, this testosterone, I don't want to call it interference because it's part of the way. And I think we need to live in like objective reality and acknowledge that this is a real thing, and to make space for this to live however it shows up, and to make space for just the other human being to live, whatever his astrology is or whatever his characteristics are. We need to make space for that to live, because in real life, if every human being was the same, this life would be boring as hell. Boring.
Right.
Super
boring. Right.
Super boring. And how on earth can I, as a human being, be fulfilled if I don't have the space to self-discover and uncover who I truly am? And I will tell you that in this relationship dynamic that I'm in right now, it's been 17 years. It is the best. It is like another level, the best it's ever been. And this is a relationship dynamic that I would describe. Well, I wouldn't describe it this way, but some people might relate to it as sometimes I might use the phrase open relationship to refer to what we are, but that's not even a proper label or proper term. It is that we are free people. We are two people who love each other so much that we have the ability to show up in the relationship as we are, as is, and to work with what is, and to allow that to evolve and to grow and to percolate. And it is a value. It's the thing that keeps the cohesion of us together. I'll say that.
No, you know what? And I appreciate that. And I think that there are many people that have these types of relationships. And to be honest with you, we've seen one that, and not to say that your dynamic is this dynamic, but we've seen one of these types of relationships that to me looks beautiful on the outside, even though the entire internet is talking shit about it, which is Jada Pinkett and Will Smith, right? Like everybody, I got so bothered watching the way that everybody dumped on Jada Pinkett. Like, and it was just one of those things that on a personal level, it was like, okay, so first off, there had been a lot of chatter about, you know, the little things that they would do, right, for a long time. So there was that really didn't come as a big surprise. And even to their own admission, when they would have interviews, you would notice that there would be certain types of questions that they would kind of dodge. They didn't want to outright lie, but at the same time, you know, they didn't want to put the specifics of their relationship dynamic on display. But you could tell that this was a couple that, for all intents and purposes, were coloring outside the lines, but for whatever way, shape, or matter, it looked like it was working for them. Then it comes out that, yeah, during this period when they were separated, she has this entanglement. And it's like the internet decided, let's drag the hell out of Jada Pinkett Smith, as if we never thought for a moment that Will had extramarital relationships outside of, but it was like just the thought that they could be defining their own space was causing individuals to crumble. And I think the part about that was always so shocking and so jarring to me is it's like, these are people that I don't believe themselves were probably the most righteous, right? Like it'd be one thing if you was just some high pious, high-minded individual that felt a certain type of way. But then it was just like a degree of hypocrisy where it's like, bro, I know that you kind of doing your own things. I know you're probably a serial cheater, but the idea that these two people, like, and Will never acted as if anything was wrong with it. Everybody wanted to be like, oh my God, I can't believe she's doing this to him. Oh my God. And it's just like, I am just fascinated that y'all think that this Oscar award winning multi-millionaire sex machine, you know what I'm saying? Like the whole world loves this dude. And you really think that he's somehow a victim inside of this relationship? Like, did you read his book? You know what I mean? Like these are people that were so ready to castigate their relationship and put it on them under a microscope as if everything with them was making a lot of sense. And then you just start to realize like, man, there's a lot of projection that's going on here. And it was one of those things where it was like, and this is why people who are out here finding their own way feel a bit afraid to sometimes be open about it, right? Like hopefully you find your person where you can be honest with them and then you all can move in your way. But like if you're someone that says, hey, listen, I'm looking for someone to march down this life path with me, right? I'm looking for someone to take this journey with me, but you're constantly worrying about, am I going to be able to show up as myself, right? Because the internet, the comment section, and Hollywood makes me believe that this is the way I'm supposed to be, right? This is the way that everybody is supposed to be. And so, there's a fear of showing up authentically, right? Because if I show up as myself, what kind of backlash am I going to get from the individual that I'm either interested in or the peanut gallery that surrounds us, and so it's like, I honestly believe that is one of the major factors that's inhibiting not only relationships from progressing, but then even people from finding someone is like, we're all on, like you said a moment ago, we're all on this journey of self-discovery. But then when it comes time for us to find a mate, again, we have to trust that if we are vulnerable and I am exposing myself to you, that it's not going to be met with ridicule. And I'm gonna be honest, when I look at the comment section, sometimes it makes you wonder if that is possible, right? And this is on both sides, on men and women, because the moment that you think differently about a topic, it's like the whole hive that comes in and feels some type of way, whether it's like, I don't even want to put them in boxes because there's too many boxes, but I just know what the algorithm will do. When you put some content out there, it's going to find everybody that thinks opposite so that it can be a fight, right? Like that's what the comment section is can I find the two polar opposing forces to meet in the comment section and have a death match?
I hear that. Let me put a little bit of logic on this.
Okay.
Let me approach just a little bit of logic with this. But first, let me note some observations. When I go into comments, sometimes I don't even go into comment section sometimes, because when I go, there's the poles are fighting, right? And I am seeing a bunch of like anger, upsetness, disgruntledness, just negative energy overall. But here's the thing. For so long, I can't even put the number of years on it. For so long, we as individuals have accepted the social construct of how relationships should go. We inherited it. We accepted it. We never thought about it. We've never questioned it for ourselves. We've never decided that this is actually a construct that will add value in my life. We've accepted it. We've accepted it because one, it's what everybody else does, and two, if we don't, the others will shame us or try to humiliate us if we don't think the way that they think or move the way that they move or move in social convention. Here's the thing. I'm a scientist, okay? I look at the actual data and the outcomes. when I look at the outcomes of what's happening in relationship, what I see are high divorce rates. What I see are relationships falling apart left and right. And for the relationships that are still together, when I'm around a lot of couples, I can feel the contention, the vibration of contention underneath their relationship. I can feel the inauthenticity in it. Or even when I talk to some of the people, there's a lot of deep dissatisfaction. So if we actually decide to be awake, and we actually decide to look at the outcomes and look at the evidence of what we get when we subscribe to a way of thinking and being without ever questioning it, without ever assessing and experimenting and saying, does this get me the thing that I want? Like, you just give your agency away. You give your agency away, your sense of self-responsibility away, your ability to choose your own life away. You give away your opportunity to express that which is within you that wants to manifest. And as a person who lives, I'm speaking for myself now, my life looks very different. I live a very unconventional life, very, very different, lots of prosperity, joy, all these things. And it's here because I'm a self-actualizing person, meaning I'm a person who's on a journey of flourishing. And to flourish means to make the space to allow my authentic self to flow out. And a lot of times that authentic self is counterculture. It's counter to the guardrails that we've been given. And if people are actually honest with themselves, the guardrails suck. They don't feel good. They're heavy. A lot of people feel stuck in life. They go to work and they hate work. They come home and they hate home. And if this is what following the social moral code has gotten you, you need to be an intelligent person and think about that and ask yourself, what assumptions have I made, or what assumptions have I accepted that have led to these outcomes? And how can I sit back in the driver's seat of myself and use my own mind and experiment and get outcomes and decide what is appropriate for me? Until that happens, there are going to be a lot of people moving down a path that will lead them off a cliff. You're following everybody else off a cliff. And yes, does it take courage to not follow the crowd off a cliff? Absolutely. But that's what an awakened person is. That's what a self-actualizing person is. That's what a person who actually follows their inner GPS or follows their God guidance is. Because you're following that which is authentic to you, and you're letting that live and you're letting that breathe. And to be in relationships with other human beings who are also practicing this self-authenticity and who can accept you and who can hear your truth and who can sit with it and who can. This is the highest value in my life right now. And this is not a dynamic that just exists in my romantic relationship. This exists in all of my relationships. And it's the reason why all of the people I'm connected to are thriving and flourishing, because we've learned that this social shit don't work. And if you need evidence, go on Instagram and look at all the unhappy people on there. You look enjoying your own life. If it ain't working,
right.
Yeah.
No. Listen. Okay, so listen. So we're gonna do something. I absolutely love that. I'm thoroughly enjoying this discussion. Just FYI, on blackdoctor.org, I only have an hour, so I'm about to wrap, but I'm gonna call you. We're gonna continue this conversation.
Let's keep going.
Because we done already got started, and I know we got more to go through, but I don't want to, for individuals that, have either tuned in or that will watch later, I know that, I try to be fair when I'm on the Black Dot. Now, if I was on Tequila Tales, I just keep going until the sun sets, right? but during this period, I want to thank everyone that has either tuned in as of this point or that will watch later. I want to thank Taria for stepping in and being my first ever guest, right? Like, that's awesome. Like, just to give her a special shout out for being my first ever guest. That was, I appreciate you for jumping in and doing it last minute, but there was a piece of me that knew that not only did I want to talk, have this conversation with you, but that it would just have a lot of value, especially so. Just know, and we'll talk about this later, this session has provided a lot of value for me personally. So I appreciate you for not only reaching out and sharing what you shared earlier, right? Because you shared some things with me about the brand and about Tequila Tales that meant a lot to me. And like I said, I appreciate when people hear from God and they follow the direction, right? Like I appreciate when sometimes we get messages and we'll sit on it and we'll think, I'll hit them up later, not knowing that that thing that we had inside of us that I wanted to express, that it was timely, right? For reasons that you may not have been consciously or physically aware of, but spiritually you could feel something and you obeyed the guidance to reach out and leave a very heartfelt message that, like I said, I'm gonna say because I will, like I said, we'll talk about it later. But with that being said, you guys, again, I want to thank you all for tuning in. And until the next time.